Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for attending today. And for those of you who are not here, thank you for watching the recording later. We are OpenHands, and we are here to talk to you about same-day bug fixes, streamlining dev workflows with MCPs and OpenHands. Today, we have Robert joining us. He is CEO and co-founder of OpenHands. We also have Ben Solari, who is our Chief Revenue Officer. Myself, and I am Jamie Steinberg, Developer Relations Engineer, as well as we will have OpenHands join us a little bit later, who is our MIT licensed coding agent. So, what is OpenHands? I'm going to go ahead and kick it off to Robert.
Yeah, so OpenHands is an MIT licensed open source coding agent. We began about 18 months ago as OpenDevin originally, with the idea that, it's very clear to us that software development is changing. Our jobs have changed a lot just in the last, year or two. And it's clear that it's just the first innings of what that change is going to look like. And we really want to give the development community a say in how that change happens, right? If our jobs are going to change, we should all be kind of a part of that change. And so it's super important to me personally, and for us as a company that there be a really strong open source coding agent out there that devs can leverage for free and contribute to. I think what makes so in terms of how to interact with OpenHands, as we move through the slides here.
Sorry about that.
No, all good. So there's a few different ways to work with coding agents. The one that folks are most familiar with is usually through like a CLI tool. So if you're familiar with like Claude Code or Aider or OpenCode, OpenHands has a CLI very much like that, where you can kind of get started with this local development workflow where you're focused on a task, you're having the agent do it, but you're probably watching it and hitting yes every time it wants to run a command. But then we can get even more powerful and more scalable than that by moving towards the cloud. So you can actually run OpenHands instances through our web application at either at app.allhands.dev or in a self-hosted cloud. And this allows you to run up to dozens or hundreds of agents at a time, all working on their own tasks with their own sandbox in the cloud. Much more like scalable way to use OpenHands if you're going to be doing things in parallel, especially on the same code base. And it's nice because you don't really have to like babysit the agent the way you do with something that's running on your laptop. There's no chance of it like deleting all your files all of a sudden since it's got its own sandbox in the cloud. And then we have an SDK as well, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but that allows you to run these agents through APIs or through Python. And define exactly how they interact with each other and basically orchestrate them at scale. So the big differentiator for OpenHands is that because we're totally open source, you have a ton of transparency into how the agent works. Basically, all of our agentic tech that our research team works on goes into our MIT licensed open source project. That means it's super customizable. We have about 1,000 configuration options. We've had folks even like fork the code base and modify it to fit their needs, contribute back, etc. We're also one of the most accurate agents out there. That's both in terms of SweBench benchmark as well as other benchmarks like multi-SweBench, SWT bench, or VersaBench. We've shown that we're capable of not just the sorts of like atomic coding tasks that people measure with SweBench, but a wide range of software engineering tasks. Being open source also means that there's no lock-in to a particular model. So a lot of folks have invested over the last 6 months or so with Claude Code, but they're seeing how good GPT-5 is at long-range tasks and have a little bit of FOMO that like they've invested in the Claude stack and can't use GPT. With OpenHands, though, you can basically replace the LLM out under the hood and take advantage of the best models for different sorts of tasks. So being able to switch between models and model providers, I think, is super helpful and more future-proof than aligning yourself with one particular model provider. And then, as I was explaining before, you have this flexibility in terms of where and when you run OpenHands, right? You can run it on your local machine using our CLI. You can run it inside of Docker on your local machine. You can run it inside of our cloud. You can run it inside of your own cloud, inside of a Kubernetes cluster. Lots of different ways to run OpenHands, based on your needs.
Just on that point, Robert, I'd say we're hearing from a lot of customers, especially in regulated industries, the benefits of that last point on the deployment flexibility. They're looking for an agent that's truly air-gapped, and the fact that everything can kind of be hosted on, their premise is certainly a benefit for folks that may want to use this in their work environment, but can't due to security constraints. So. Just wanted to point.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think the most security conscious organizations aren't even comfortable like sending their data to Anthropic, for instance. So being able to run OpenHands entirely air-gapped in your VPC with like an open source model like Qwen3 or DevScroll, super helpful because all your data stays within your walls. Cool. And then I want to talk a little bit about the Agent SDK, which is in a pre-release right now. This is something we're actively working on. The idea is that you can define agents in Python code. This will allow you to run those agents both locally, as like a normal Python script, as well as you can use that Python script to spin up agents in the cloud, either inside of Docker containers or inside of a Kubernetes cluster. Super powerful. This is going to power our CLI. It's going to power our web application. It's going to power all of our APIs. And it's something that we're making available to everybody for free. So MIT licensed, feel free to check us out on GitHub. And we're also, now that we've got the SDK in place, we're marching towards version 1 of OpenHands. This is our first big stable release where we're going to commit to stabilizing a lot of the APIs here. The CLI is already being built on top of the SDK, so CLI v1 is out. The web UI and our cloud versions are in progress now. They'll be out soon. Again, all of this is MIT licensed. And would love to have you all try it out.
And that leads us to what are MCPs. So back to me. MCPs, it's short for Model Context Protocol. That doesn't mean much to me. So the way that I like to think about it is that they're like APIs for our AI agents. I think that's the simplest way to put it, especially if you're new to this. But what it comes down to, it's a standardized way for LLMs and agents to talk using tools, data, UI, just a bunch of different things. It seems like almost every platform is creating their own MCP server for an AI agent to leverage. The core ideas around this are just capability discovery. You can do typed requests and responses. You can do events and streaming. What that really comes down to is whatever platform you're using the MCP, your AI agent is going to be able to leverage it. And we have 2 examples today, but there are many more coming down the line. One of the benefits of using MCPs is just the interoperability and also your ability to switch vendors. Because like I said, you can use, in our example, we're going to be using the Figma MCP. So if you're using Figma to design, that's great. You can use Figma with OpenHands, but let's say you move to another platform, well, you can just change the MCP. And then your agent can just interact with that platform differently. Or for example, Datadog is coming out with an MCP. If you use Datadog for your logs, you can utilize that. But if you change vendors, you can also change the MCP, and your AI agent, in this case OpenHands, will be able to access those logs from a different provider. So yeah, MCPs really supercharge your AI agent. It really allows the ability to have pluggable tools without bespoke adapters, because all MCPs are moving towards the ability to just be added to an AI agent generically. It's also permissioned, so you might have an API key, you might use different ways to authenticate, but it's going to make sure that your data is safe as you're interacting with that MCP, as the MCP is giving your agent information. Also, it's just like a lower integration cost. It's much easier to have an MCP and add it to your agent and just restart it and run with it versus creating some sort of custom integration that you're going to have to keep up to date as things change. So yeah, MCPs is the way to go. And then how does MCPs and OpenHands work? Basically, what it allows is it allows OpenHands to access and get context immediately. In our case, we'll be doing Figma, so a design. And then we'll also be using Context7, which is dependencies. But like I said, Datadog has one. I know that there's one for Notion. I know that there are MCPs also to access like your Google Workspace. So the ability to draft a blog on one platform, like a Google Doc, and then having OpenHands take that and implement it into your website, your blog. It just allows you to be moving faster and allows you to tighten the iteration loop, as well as in our case, we'll be doing some bug fixes. But it can also help you do new features as well. Cool. So let's go ahead and kick it off with a demo for OpenHands MCP. Right now, we're going to do Figma Desktop. So yeah, I'm just going to clarify where I'm using Figma Desktop. We're going to implement a UI change, but you can actually do prototyping. You can implement other design changes. The sky is the limit. So we are over here. I already have OpenHands pulled up in our CLI, and I also have my Figma here ready to go. So it's already drafted this. But when I run it, you'll see that the mobile is not running as well as it should. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go ahead and get it installed. And then I'm going to go ahead and run it so that we can take a look. So here it is. And as you can see, it looks pretty good on desktop. But if we go in over here and we switch it to mobile, you can see it is a little bit difficult the way that it is scrolling over here. It's not following the design exactly. So we are going to fix that with OpenHands. I'm going to select the design I want to implement. In this case, it's mobile. I could do tablet. I'm going to select mobile. I'm going to make sure I know which folder I'm in, which is Figma MCP Demo 5. And then I'm going to come over here. I'm going to tell OpenHands, go to directory of Figma MCP Demo 5, follow the mobile design implemented in Figma Desktop, and fix the mobile view. And as you can see, we already have the MCP set up in this case to try to just speed things along. As Robert mentioned, you can also do like yes and click it every time and proceed every time. I go ahead and just accept anything that is low to medium risk. And so as you can see, it's going to kick off and it's going to run through. Now, I do have one that is readily available, so we can go ahead and just leave this one continuing to run. It took about 5-6 minutes to run completely, but like I said, some movie magic, so to speak. We do have one demo running or available. And so this one, I also used OpenHands to correct earlier. And then just to let everyone know, I also used OpenHands to create the project to begin with. But it didn't catch the mobile rendering part as well. So as we can see, it's doing that weird highlighting thing. But now it doesn't stretch as far. It's not quite perfect. But as you can see, we don't have the menu that we had before where it like really overreached. But now we have a little hamburger, as we're supposed to. So yeah, that is how you can use OpenHands with the Figma MCP. It really allows you to have OpenHands have that like common language between Figma and the LLMs and coding and leverage in order to like fix things of this nature, implement new features, And that is our Figma demo. Now we also have a Context7 demo as well. As you can see, just before I move on to the Context7 demo, I want to go ahead and point out, as you use the CLI, it's going to create tasks and it's going to check off the different tasks as it goes. So it allows you to follow. One of the reasons why Robert mentioned using the cloud is because you can have multiple agents and multiple tabs with task lists, 5 to 7 tasks, and they'll just run through them. And then you can just go to the agent that's done, that needs help, or answers. And so in this case, as it's running through, it checks them off and it keeps going. But like I said, we're going to go ahead and move to our Context7 demo. So as you know, when you use LLMs, the knowledge that they have related to library and dependencies, it's not always up to date. It can be a year behind. It could be worse. In this case, I've created a demo where it has older dependencies and it will error out when you run it. And we're going to have OpenHands fix it. So I'm going to go ahead and install everything, and then I'm going to go ahead and have it run. And as you can see in a moment, we have a bunch of errors. So this was created just using no web search. So Tavily is an MCP we already have built in, which can search the web for new things. And then Context7 is specifically for libraries and dependencies. And so in this case, we created it without any access to those. And as you can see, these dependencies are incorrect. They are old and they are causing it to fail. So in this case, I'm actually going to go ahead and cancel this. And I'm going to refresh it. New session. And let's go ahead and have OpenHands start fixing this. So this folder, Context7 demo live, copy. Use Context7 MCP to find the latest dependency libraries, etc., and fix all of the errors in the directory Context7 demo live copy. Okay, and then from there, the agent's going to go ahead and kick off. And it's going to ask me this. I'm going to go ahead and do auto confirm. And then from there, it'll find the directory. It's going to run the code. It's going to see the errors. And then it's going to use Context7 to get the latest libraries and determine what needs to be upgraded in order to run correctly. This one takes some time to do. This took about 17 minutes. And after that was with me kicking it off and like not having to come back to it. So after it ran and it created all the tasks and checked them off, it was able to create a demo that worked, which I have one available here. And this one is ready to go. So you saw the errors on the previous one. This one has already been fixed. So we are going to go ahead and get this running. And as you can see, there's some errors. Okay, an error has been thrown, but that is okay because I actually have a video where we can see what it looks like when it runs correctly, because as we all know, sometimes running live demos is difficult. So here we go. This is when I went through and I went ahead and made sure that it starts to go through things. As you can see, here it is running through, resolving different libraries, accessing Context7, creating these tasks and going through and checking them off as they're completed. And then as we go towards the end, you'll see that it has completed everything and it has tested the application. That's something that I love about OpenHands. It will test the application. It'll see the error, and instead of giving back to you the error, it'll be like, oh, there's an error. Let me go back and fix it. So it is tireless and working. And then from there, we can go ahead and we can run it. So this is the same code base again, and then I'm going to install, and then I'm going to run. And then it runs, there are no errors, and then I can open it. It ended up being a blank page, so there's nothing to see because this demo was specifically to test for library dependencies. All right, so those are the demos that we have. Let me go back to our presentation. And I'll go ahead and close it out. All right, so we showed you 2 examples of how to use MCPs. We showed you a Figma one implementing a UI fix specifically for mobile view, and then also showing you how you can leverage Context7, which I found from our developer community, so that you can have the latest library dependencies and anything else for your application and have OpenHands access these things and work. The other thing that I did mention also was that we automatically have Tavily built in, and that allows OpenHands to search the internet. So that is also very helpful. And as I said, this really allows you to not do as much legwork switching between things, copy and pasting things, trying to translate things to OpenHands, creating screenshots and putting it in and like it's not quite right. This really allows OpenHands to just unlock a wide variety of different systems of records, of applications, of platforms, of softwares, and allows OpenHands to unlock more creativity and potential so that you're able to get your job done more quickly, efficiently, maybe a hobby project that you're working on. And it's just one of the ways that we're improving OpenHands so that it can be the best open source AI agent for you. Anyways, those are our demos for MCPs. And so I'm going to go ahead and go to our QA, see if there's any QA questions.
Yeah, we've got one from the chat on configuration between the authentication between MCPs and an agent like OpenHands.
Yes, so I can show you my configuration now. Let me get out of this presentation and then let me go back to the CLI, which is still running. Cool. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pause this. Nope. It might not let me pause. All right, I will just show you what we have in our docs so that you can see how you would configure. So if you're using our CLI v1 that was released recently, you can follow this information regarding how to configure the MCP. So we've changed things for our v1 CLI, and you would create an mcp.json within your OpenHands folder. This OpenHands folder gets created when you run OpenHands, and then you can look what best to run OpenHands if you scroll up a little bit more. But basically, you follow this configuration depending on which MCP you need. And then from there, OpenHands will be able to access the MCP. The ones that I've used are the streamable HTTP. And then if you're still using our previous soon to be deprecated MCP, if you do /MCP, it'll like walk you through the process of adding different servers and things like that. But we found that JSON is actually more of an industry standard. So it's one of the reasons why we switched and moved away from TOML. But yeah, that is how you can add MCPs to OpenHands in the CLI. But we also allow the ability to add MCPs in our cloud version as well. And you can get that under here in MCP. And as you can see, You can add all the MCPs that your heart desires, and you can pick the server type. So SSE, Studio, SHTTP, as well as the URL and API key if there is one.
Awesome. We've got one for maybe Robert on the ETA for OpenHands UI based on SDK for V1, meaning the self-hosted UI.
Yeah, we're hoping that lands probably in the next week, maybe 2 weeks. We're still working through a few remaining bits there. We've got most of the code checked in. It like kind of works, but there's still some paper cuts preventing us from actually like shipping it. So we're trying to get it to feature parity so that we can ship it without any lagging features.
And then one around when fixing something like bugs, does it show the cost for token usage?
Yeah, when you end your session, yeah, Jamie, you want to take that?
Yeah, it will show, I think right now. Okay. And then can I pause it? When I cancel out, so it depends. If you're using V1, it'll show the token usage as you go. It has like a little thing over here, and it'll show the cost, not necessarily like the amount of tokens, I can't remember, but it'll show the cost of what it is. In this case, when you close out, it will also show you the cost. So I'm going to terminate, and it shows, okay, so it does show total tokens and then also the total cost in USD. So we do reveal that in V1, as I said, the new one, it'll reveal it as you go. And in this case, if you're using the previous CLI, it'll reveal it at the end. And I believe also in our cloud, it also reveals the token cost too, like at the bottom area.
Great. We got another one that came in directly on other use cases that we've seen, besides dependencies and bug fixing for something like OpenHands and MCPs.
Yeah, I see the question. Oh, do you mean the one in the QA? Is the CLI and GUI
No,
feature
just
paired?
it's
Oh,
it's on use cases. What other use cases for OpenHands are there?
cool. Some of the other use cases that I've seen for OpenHands related to MCPs is the ones that I've shared, but you mean like use cases for OpenHands just in general?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for that. You can actually use it for more than just coding. So a lot of the things that I do in developer relations is I'm here to manage the community as well as get visibility over the community. So some of the ways that I leverage OpenHands to do that is I use OpenHands to create dashboards all the time. These dashboards can reveal information about our repos, who is creating pull requests, who are the most active users we have, how is OpenHands helping with those pull requests. And so I leverage OpenHands to create those dashboards for me to get visibility on that. I also use OpenHands to create basically all the PRs and all the comments that I have. If you've used OpenHands and you use it in GitHub, you'll see that it does an amazing job at like summarizing what has changed and commenting. I think the commenting is a newer feature. And so that just allows you to focus on building and doing your thing. The other thing that I use OpenHands for frequently is having materials prepared for hackathons and other presentations. So any of the redirect links that you see, any of the QR codes, I typically leverage OpenHands to get that done so that it comes from our primary website. And then the other things that I use OpenHands for is the Slack integration is really great. When you at OpenHands, you can have it do a GitHub issue. You can have it start working on something that somebody shared within the chat. So for example, as I was working through this, there were some features that I wanted to see with the MCP that were not quite there yet. And so what I did was I kicked it off in the chat and I did like a quick description. I interacted with one of our other colleagues, and then I just at OpenHands and I was like, capture this in a ticket on GitHub issues in this repo. So those are just some of the ways that I use OpenHands. I know that Robert has been using our agent SDK in OpenHands a lot, so I'll kick it off to him for some of the ways that he leverages it.
Yeah, I would say like in terms of use cases, like a lot of folks start with like just little bits of toil, right? Fixing merge conflicts, fixing tests, things like that. But I think there's an inflection point where somebody really starts to embrace agents where they default basically everything goes through the agent. Like, so that this is where I'm at in my agent journey, is that like now anytime I want to do any kind of coding, I throw it at OpenHands first. And I might iterate a few times. I might like go back and forth with the agent, but it I would say I only open my IDE like 5% of the time now, right? I don't really write any code by hand anymore. So it's hard to like highlight very specific use cases because it's so good at like everything across the board. As long as you take the time to prompt it well and get used to it and get used to working with the agent. But you can get so much more done in parallel when you've got agents working instead of you typing all the keystrokes as well. So.
And I also wanted to add that OpenHands excels at reducing technical debt. So I think we like briefly touched upon this, but we definitely talked about how we're moving to V1, but I don't think we really talked about like how deeply we use OpenHands to make that move from 0 to 1. It's really incredible how OpenHands can like understand the code base and help us make informed decisions so that we have a light and flexible architecture that we'll be able to like iterate and build upon in the future. Like something that we've learned is the architecture that you built on the fly within the first few weeks of OpenHands Open Devon doesn't necessarily scale and grow as you grow. Shocking. And so it's just really great that like OpenHands has the ability and you can leverage it to do these huge code refactoring. I mean, like our code is pretty insignificant compared to some even larger refactors out there, but the ability to leverage OpenHands, there's no way that we would be where we are progress-wise and so close to the finish line if it wasn't for OpenHands with our code refactoring.
Yeah, I think we don't have a firm date on it, Jamie, but we will be actually running a webinar, I think, over the next month on refactoring. So stay tuned for that. We did have one maybe for Robert on our SaaS app is end-to-end deployed in GCP. Data is sensitive, and so having OpenHands deployed in the GCP instance and manage deployments, any reference implementation to showcase sounds like self-hosted.
So yeah, you can definitely host our enterprise offering in your own GCP cluster. I would say having OpenHands manage the actual deployment of your software is most folks aren't like pointing OpenHands at a production environment like that. It's a little scary to have an agent let it loose in your production environment, right? Most people are using OpenHands to modify a code base. Now, there's nothing necessarily stopping you from having OpenHands run Helm deploy every time you want to cut a release, but that's the sort of thing where you'd want the determinism of like a deployment script, like a CI/CD pipeline. So this
It's
might
also
be the best case.
Yeah, it's also probably a good chance to I'll touch on our design partnerships, but we are working with folks for self-hosted evaluations and more of a white glove way. So is there any other Q&A that I might have missed here?
We have a QA in the QA section. It's
Oh,
from
cool.
Brian, and Brian asked, is the CLI and GUI at feature parity regarding the agents?
Yeah, pretty much. I think the UI has some nice to have things around visibility and interactiveness. But in terms of what the agent's capable of doing, they are feature parity. They're both using the underlying agent SDK, so it's pretty straightforward to we have all the same APIs to leverage it.
Very
Great.
cool.
And then, yeah, I see there's a comment around OpenHands doing IAC. OpenHands is great at infrastructure as code. You can get it to write Terraform. You can get it to write Helm charts. So if you are going to be doing deployments, that is probably the right way to do it, where OpenHands makes changes to your IAC. You approve those, and then your CD pipeline kicks off and actually gets it into prod.
Cool.
Awesome. Jamie, maybe you want to plug how folks can get their hands on it, at least a
Yeah,
couple of different
absolutely.
ways.
So I think the quickest way to get started is to go to our app.all-hands.dev, though app.openhands.dev should also be working, and I can drop that in the chat as well if you haven't already tried it. But the reason that this is the easiest way to get started is because you can log in with your GitHub, your GitLab, or Bitbucket. We'll give you $20 credit, and you can go ahead and start building, either creating a new conversation in a repo that you're already working on. And so that is why I would say it's the quickest way. You could probably build something new within minutes, depending on how complex the ask is. So definitely would give that a try, especially with the credit. And then you can also try our local version. So the version that you saw me use today, you'll need UV as a dependency that is installed to run OpenHands. That is the one that I used today to demo with you. We also have a new one. You can try the V1 as well if you want. I will come back to that. And if you want to try the V1, you can go ahead and go in here, which I will share in the chat if you are interested. This one is a bit easier as you do not need UV, though you could, or Docker. But basically, you go to our release page, you download the binary that works for your machine. We do not have PowerShell available, though it does run on WSL on Windows 11, so I can recommend that. And that you would just follow Linux. And then from there, you make it executable, and then you run this, and then depending on what you named it, and then boom, it is up and running. It is very quick. If you want to, you could also compare and contrast, but this is using our agent SDK underlying, and it's pretty fast in how it gets up and running for you to use it. And those are the ways that I would recommend if you want to try OpenHands like right now today. Those are the two easiest, quickest ways to do that.
Awesome. And then for folks looking for more of a white glove engagement, we are taking applications for our Q4 Design Partner Program. Typically, this is for folks looking to kind of help champion and represent their organization with an engagement that has the potential for multi-user teams and maybe a signal within your organization that there's org level interest in agentic use cases. We talked about a few of them today. Things like CVE remediation, refactoring, dependencies, some of these upgrades from Java 2 to Java 3, etc. We've got a bunch of, I'd say, very, very large organizations and a bunch of, I'd say, on the smaller side. So we're really looking for some great kind of sweet spot medium, 50 to 500, size teams. But we will kind of talk to anyone that is interested in setting up a call. For what you get, it's pretty much around the white glove, self-hosted, or cloud evaluation, access to our engineering, our research team. There's a dedicated Slack channel. We offer discounts in terms of commercial partnerships that span beyond the design partner program. And then as far as what we're looking for, it's kind of a weekly commitment in terms of workshops, product feedback, engineering feedback, and ideally for the successful ones, we're doing case studies at the end. So I think there is some information on the next slide in terms of how to get in touch with me. I'll also put my email in the chat as well, but would love to talk to anyone that's interested in learning more. I know there was someone that had, for example, the self-hosted solution. Oh, sent that to Jamie. Let me send it to everyone. Yeah, anyways, really excited to be here and be engaging with an incredible community of builders and enthusiasts, and also excited for the V1 launch. As Robert mentioned, we've got a lot of really exciting stuff coming down the pipeline with regards to the SDK, the CLI, and now MCPs.
Absolutely. And then just to tack on what Ben shared, so if you're interested, feel free to reach out to Ben through email about this design partnership or anything else that might be best for Ben to answer. But if you're interested in possibly lurking a little bit more, talking directly with our engineering team, or getting a hold of me or Robert, the best place to do that is to join our Slack, which I dropped in our chat. Our entire team and our community and maintainers are there. And so it's a great way to like see how we build in public and all the changes coming down the line. And as we said, V1, it's coming soon. And not only will we be launching that, but we will also have a webinar that will go over all the new features that will be available at the completion of V1.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today on this at least rainy Monday in Boston, but thanks for everyone's engagement. And as Jamie mentioned, the Slack link is there. Please join the community and or reach out for more. But thank you all for joining us.